What's up guys, ATCG here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day, and today we have a deck profile that I think is one of my all-time favorite decks, and I haven't played this deck for such a long time, and I think now with some of the new cards that have come out, I think it's time for the deck to come back. I'm talking about Spellbooks, one of the best control decks that we've ever had. Sky Strikers kind of took its place as the very similar but much better deck. But now that Sky Strikers took an impressive hit by Konami from the ban list, I think it's time to visit this deck and hopefully it can match Sky Strikers in power right now. So here's the deck. We're starting off with the main boss monster of the deck, 2 High Priestess. I think 3 could be a brick. You don't need to see her in order to win, but she is still a very good card. You can special summon her by revealing 3 spellbooks, and you can banish a spellbook from your hand or graveyard to pop a card on the field. She is still the boss monster of spellbooks. I don't run the World of Prophecy because it's a complete brick when you draw it, and it requires you to also run Temperance of Prophecy, so I'm playing a more of a control version of the deck. Next, 3, Spellbook Magician, of course, the main searcher of the deck. He does whatever you want him to do. He searches any kind of spellbooks. Usually you're going for secrets. Unless you already have secrets, you can get whatever you're missing, and it's a spellbook monster, so you can search it with secrets too. 3 Jogen, I would say it's the main win condition of the deck, because as long as this is on the field, neither player can special summon. If your opponent already has an established board, you can discard a random card from your hand to destroy all special summon monsters on the field. Still a very good card going first and going second. It used to be the main win condition of the deck back in the day when we were using Spellbook of Judgment, so you were supposed to summon things from your deck with Spellbook of Judgment. Konami does not want to give back Spellbook of Judgment, seems it will never get it back even at 1. So I'm running another card in the deck to make sure that Jogen stays on the field for as much as possible. I play Tunibiru because this deck struggles against combo decks, so if your opponent overextends and they try to make a big board, this card can possibly get you back into the game, and it's very easy to deal with the token with Spellbook of Fate. 4 spells, which is the main part of the deck. 3 secrets. Of course, the best card in the deck, searches all your spellbooks, can search Spellbook Magician, can search any spellbook you're missing. It's really good. 3 knowledge. This is the new spellbook that did not exist when we were playing the deck as a meta deck, but now it's gives the deck some more draw power, and can send any spellbook spell from your hand with a different name or a spell casted from your field to the graveyard, and you can get to draw 2 cards. It can't contradict with Extravagance, but I still think it's worth running because you're not going to see Extravagance every single game, and this is searchable. 3 Fate, because it's probably the best card that can interrupt your opponent. It's the Widow Anchor of the deck, and you can banish your opponent's monster, you can flip them face down if you do not have 3 spellbooks in your graveyard, or you can bounce back row. It's the best card that you need to search during turn 1 or to interrupt. It's really good against Thunder Dragons, really good against Salamangreats or Orcust, because these decks have inherent protection from destruction. So running cards that can banish their field is the best way to deal with them. So that's why Fate is really good. And I think you need to run 3, because sometimes you can run out of resources and you need to hard draw this, or you need to hard draw some other cards in order to get your play, because the ideal turn 1 play is ending on Tower, Fate, and Spellbook Magician. But if you don't have Tower or Spellbook Magician, or if you didn't draw anything of the Master or the Secrets, then you will not be able to get both in your hand, so that's why I think you need to run 3 Fate. 2 Master, I don't think you need to run 3 of this. It's a really good card, but it sometimes can be bricky because it's not a starter by itself. You need to have a Secrets or something to search Secrets in order to be good. So that's why I think you need just 2 copies. And it's mainly better during the late game because that's when you copy Power to give a monster 2000 boost, and you can get a double search when it destroys a monster by battle. But it's also one of the combo pieces starter because it gives you another spellbook in the graveyard for Spellbook of Fate. 2 Eternity. 2 to make sure that the grind game is fair for the deck, because it can out of resources because you use Fate every single turn, hopefully. So that's why you need to get back your banished resources, and you're playing some one-offs in the deck that sometimes you need to get back in order for some certain plays. Just 1 Spellbook Tower. I don't think this card is as important as it used to be. It's still really good for the deck because it gives you back cards, it gives you more draw during your standby phase, but it's a searchable card, it's a recyclable card with Fate, because you can add it to your hand. If you benched with, you can bench with Fate and add it back with Eternity. So I don't think you need to run more than one. Again, I tried to cut as many bricks from your deck as possible to make it more consistent. 1 power. This card is the late game tool for the deck in order to OTK, because you can have, I'm playing another card that gives you more monsters on the field, so if you can use this twice on High Priestess, you can OTK, you can actually OTK with the deck. And 1 wisdom, because against certain matchups this card is still really good. It's really good against Altergeist, it's really good against Sky Strikers. Since it's searchable, I think you need to play 1. I've seen some people cut it, but I think it's still a really good card to run. And it's a card that can protect your Jaugen from maybe a board wipe, or something that can, or an impermanence like a negated effect. So if you can have this with Jaugen, it's full protection. 3 Super Poly, because it's a combo killer. You need to play Super Poly if you want to survive with a weak control deck. These boards that Thunder Dragons make, Orcasts make, you need to have Starving Venom in order to survive, because they set up so many negates, and this deck cannot play through negates at all, so it's a must play in the deck at 3. And I play Extravagance, so I play multiple copies of the targets. And this is the reason that I can actually ATK with Starving Venom. An interesting tech for the deck, with if you combine Power of the Guardians with Jaugen, this sometimes can be enough to win you the game. The equipped monster, when it battles, it gains a counter. For each counter, it gains 500 attack, and when it would be destroyed by battle or card effects, you can take out a counter instead. I think this card is better than Moon Mirror Shield, because it also gives you protection from card effects. If your opponent has like a Raigeki or Dark Hole or any archetype way of destroying card like an Afterburners, this card can protect your monster, while Moon Mirror Shield can only protect you from battles. It will be stronger than anything, but it still will be very vulnerable to your opponent's card destruction. 2 Secret Village, because this is a spellcaster deck. Against some matchups, this can be auto-win, so I don't see a reason not to play in the spellcaster deck. And 3 Extravagance, because your extra deck doesn't rely on that much on its extra deck. It mainly relies on Super Poly, but I think you can sometimes win without even Super Poly, so I think Extravagance is really important for the deck. It can contradict with Spellbook of Knowledge, but if you can just keep your Spellbook of Knowledge and start with Extravagance, then you can make sure you get a lot of draws during the second turn, and this deck needs a lot of cards in order to be able to push for games, so I think Extravagance is really good. I don't run Duality because it contradicts with High Priestess, and sometimes you need to summon High Priestess in order to get through a board. So I think Duality is not as important as Extravagance, because Duality gives you a lockdown, but it's only a 1-for-1, while the lockdown of Extravagance is not as impactful, and it gives you a +1, so it's much more important. And 3 Judgment, because sometimes you need to sell a lot of back row. Cards like Evenly Matched can really hurt, Post-Siding, Twin Twisters in the main deck can hurt, and if you can make sure you snipe your opponent's most important play with Judgment, sometimes can be enough to end their turn. And Judgment is the best Solemn card by far, because it's the one that's active throughout the whole stages of the game, because you can always pay half your life points. Strike or Warning could be dead if you've lost a lot of life points early, or if you've drawn multiples and you were forced to use them, then you might not be able to use all of them. But Judgment, no matter how many you use, no matter how many life points you've used, if you have not lost the game, you can still use it, even if you're out of 50 life points. For the extra deck, 2 Venom. Because of Extravagance, you need to make sure you have at least one, at least during the first turn. The good thing about Extravagance is that it has to be at the start of your main phase 1, so if you're going second and you draw, you can actually use Super Poly during the standby phase or the draw phase before you have to use Extravagance, so you can get away with that. And drawing Super Poly late game, if you've used multiple Extravagances, maybe it could be dead, but if you're lucky, it can be not. So I think you need to run Venom. And against the random matchups, sometimes my dragon can be summoned. There are some boards that use a lot of negates that could possibly bring this out. Some boards summon Heavenly Spheres with Dragster, which are both light, but one is machine, one's dragon, so that's when you can use this. And against random rogue decks, this can also be a useful card. And the rest of the extra deck are the standards. Because of Extravagance, these cards need to stay at 3, because this could be useful in any stage of the game. 3 Cerberus, so you can pop monsters. 3 Phoenix, popping back row could actually be relevant. This deck doesn't struggle against back row as much as it does with monsters, but sometimes if your opponent has established a full board, if you're playing against Subters, if you're playing against Altergeist, then you need to start baiting your opponent's negates in order to be able to use your actual cards. And 3 Unicorn, because you can link climb. Hopefully you can have a lot of resources in your hand, because the ideal plays of the deck gives you a lot of cards in your hand. You have a draw 2 with Extravagance, you have a draw 2 with your knowledge, and you have a draw 2 during each of your turns as long as you have Tower on the field. So usually you have a lot of cards in your hand with this deck. You just don't have a way to use all of them because the deck has a lot of once per turns. It kind of relies on its normal summon, so if you have multiple Magicians or Juggens, you cannot use all of them. That's why you need to have a way to use these cards in your hand for a certain play. And the 2 Borals. Still, I think this card should be in most extra decks that don't lock you out of certain cards. You will hardly ever summon them in this deck, but I'm pretty sure you can still summon them in some scenarios, so even if you can summon them 1 in every 20 games, they're still worth having in your deck. So I think Spellbooks could be a better deck this format. We saw them last format that they were able to do pretty decently in some not so major events, but with decks getting weakened every ban list, maybe these rogue decks can thrive even more, and this is one of the decks that I want to see some play, and hopefully sometime Konami will bring back 1 Spellbook of Judgment. I don't think it would be that broken for the format. I think it would give this deck a little bit of breath. So, yep, that's the deck, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.